This is Real Oregon Lifestyle with Andrea Fay and Jen Fiddler, two licensed real estate brokers who share their love of all things Oregon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Oregon Lifestyle. I'm Andrea Fay.
I'm Jennifer Fiddler.
And today we've got a fun episode, and it's all about interest rates, which actually, when I say that, it doesn't sound very fun, but it actually really is.
It's really not that fun, but it's kind of cool when we dive into it and what it really means and how that affects your purchasing power. We'll talk about all of that today and what rates have done over time, what they're expected to do, etc.
Yeah, this whole topic also kind of makes me feel a little bit nerdy, but we kind of are nerdy a little bit. We dig the numbers. We really kind of dig looking at this stuff. So Andy, our producer, will you please pull up our first graphic?
Yeah, I thought this would be a really good place to start, is just talking about mortgage rates over the course of the last few decades. 70s rates were in the 8, almost 9 range. The 80s, we knew that was a terrible time. Everybody talks about the 80s. Average interest rate was 12.7, 90s 8.2, 2000 6.29, and then in 2010, 4.9. Today, we're hovering around 2.97. That's actually probably a little bit low. Rates have gone up a little bit, but they're still hovering right around the 3.25 range, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so from one of our lender friends, I actually got some rates yesterday. And of course, they change sometimes by the hour. But yesterday, they were at 3.125. They're in that range.
Yeah. But anyway, it's close. So we just wanted to give a perspective of what rates have done over time. And I have a lot of people right now that are, complaining because rates aren't what they were at the beginning of COVID when things were like 2%. But, rates eventually will go up and will continue to go up. They've been pretty low and we've gotten used to that. So this is also just to bring some perspective to what rates really could be and what they were when, our parents were buying houses.
Yeah. So that actually, when we look at the 80s, and I remember my mom has, of course, told this story about how they bought their first house and it was like 800 square feet and it was like 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And it was this kind of rundown, foreclosure that they bought and they fixed it up. But she said their rate was around 10%. But she also paid, I think they paid like $30,000 for that little house. And that was their very first house. But quite a bit of a difference these days. You can't buy a house for $30,000 unless you're buying maybe a manufactured home in a park.
Yeah, that is some perspective too. Real estate prices have probably doubled in the last 20 years. So, it's fortunate that rates are low and have stayed low because that affects your buying power so much when, prices are going through the roof right now because we have a lack of inventory and that's really driven up the average sales price. So that is one thing, people always say, well, your buying power is more than it's ever been. And that's not exactly true. That's a little bit of a myth. Your buying power right now is about the same as it was in 2005, but it's not the same buying power that you probably had when houses were a lot cheaper. So it's just something, it's all about perspective. It's really all about your affordability on a monthly basis and what that looks like. And that's some of the stuff that is more important than getting focused on the actual number when you're, talking to your lender and you're getting pre-approved. What you really want to look at is what's your monthly payment going to be like? And can you afford this house for the next 5, 7, 8 years, however long you plan to stay there? And I say 5 to 7 because that's about the average.
Yeah, and that is about the average. I think that a lot of lenders take that into consideration too, because they know that people are going to eventually move or refinance or do something to make a change. And I ended up talking with a lender this week, and her name is Jess Walker Wise. She's with Movement Mortgage here in Corvallis. And so she kind of brought some things into perspective too. But Jen, I'll let you go to your next slide if you want to.
There's our beautiful graphic. So what we've talked about a lot in the podcast in the past is the 1%, 10% rule and how that applies to mortgages. So for every 1% that rates go up, your purchasing power goes down by 10%. So say you were approved for 500,000, that approval just became 450. In certain price ranges, that can make a really, really big difference at what you're looking at in certain areas. I know for our area, the difference between 450 and 500 is quite a bit different. So that's just something to keep in mind. The longer that you wait and the more that rates go up in conjunction with, what we're seeing now, which is prices appreciating 1% to 2% a month, you probably don't want to necessarily wait. And that's why buyers who are in the market right now have such an urgency to get something in contract, is because we really think that rates are going to go up. Looking back, 2020 rates hovered around 3.1%. So your mortgage payment is $1,140 at that. 2021, that rises to $1,261. It's not a huge difference, but it just shows you what, a tiny change in interest rates can do to your overall payment. That same house is looking at, that was 296,700 in 2020 is going to be 334,000 in 2022 with a rate of 3.7. And that's, darn near $210, $250 a month. So I can't math that fast, but whatever 1384 minus 1140 is per month. So that makes a big difference when you're looking at it, going back to that whole affordability factor of like, what does that look like on a monthly basis? So,
for some people that can make or break it.
Yeah, I can. Some people right now I think are going to end up being priced out of the market just with the way that, up here in Portland, with the way that values are going up so much, because about the time that values start to level off, that's when rates are going to go up. And so I'm trying to, encourage people. I know it's a frustrating market right now. I understand that as a buyer, but I think there's a sense of urgency when you're looking at what's going to happen in the future.
I actually have some clients right now that are at that place where they're just very borderline on whether or not they can afford a house at all. The way I see it is we can give you the information to make that decision, and we can do our best to find you the houses. But there is, when you're that close, like you could be in danger of getting priced out. And so you got to do everything that you can to get that house that you're interested in.
Yeah, I mean, think in terms of, what real estate has done over, like I said, real estate's doubled over the last 20 years. So yeah, this doesn't have to be your forever home. It doesn't have to be your dream home. I don't live in my dream home. I mean, you don't live in your dream home. Eventually, we'll get to houses that we like more and more over time. But, I think the point is get into something while the rates are good and the prices are, on the rise, but not before, it goes up too crazy. So,
yeah. And if you can get in now and start building that equity, you're only going to be in a better place. The point is to start.
Yeah, point is to start. And Andrea actually has some really good points. We've talked a little bit about historically what rates have done, what 1% does to your purchasing power, but there's some other things that lenders, you'll see and you'll hear about points and buying down points and what that means. And so Andrea's got some really good information to share in regards to that.
Yeah, so I spent a little time this week and I spoke with one of our good lender friends here in Corvallis, Jess Walker-Wise with Movement Mortgage. And she and I were just kind of comparing stories about things that were going on in the marketplace, which we do this a lot with lenders. And so I said, well, what are rates at today? And she said, yeah, they're about 3.125. And of course they do kind of fluctuate and change sometimes by the hour. And she also said, well, let me give you some examples of kind of what we're seeing. And so she based an example off of $400,000. So $400,000 loan with 20% down. And that's assuming that these people have credit of about 740. Rates are going to be about 3.125, and that's without buying down the loan. So, and she says, rates are still hovering around 3 for conventional loans these days. But she says, okay, let's bump that interest rate up a little bit. And so she said, as an example, if interest rates go up to 3.25, then you're going to be paying about $22 more each month, which for some people, $22 a month more, it may not be a big deal. And so if you're competing and you're trying to get a certain house and you need to bump up your purchase price, then you probably have the ability to do that. That's that buying power we're talking about. And so if $22 a month is not a big deal for you, then awesome. But for others, $22 a month more may put you over the edge. It's hard to tell. Everybody's got a different situation. And then so she gave an example. Okay, well, say rates rise up to 3.5%. Well, that's a $66 a month increase. And then at 3.75, we're at $111 more per month. And again, everyone's going to be different on that, but that $111, that could change things for some people. So, it's really interesting to see how interest rates, as they go up, and they're just going up a little bit here and there, but that can make quite a bit of difference for someone.
Yeah, I think also something that I hear all the time is, well, this online lender quoted me 2.99. So speak to that a little bit and what it takes to get a 2.99 rate.
Yeah, so you can still get those really, really, really low rates. However, you're going to pay for it probably. And that's going to be with points. And for anyone that doesn't know what a point is 1% of the loan amount. So you're going to be paying that up front. You're basically paying prepaid interest on it. And what that does is it helps you buy down that rate, and that could be a really good thing to get you that super, super low rate. However, if you're going to have to put thousands and thousands of dollars down to pay these points, that's actually considered kind of an investment in the loan. And if that's going to put you in a position where you're not going to be, able to make your mortgage payment, or if you're going to be a little bit tight every single month, a lender may not want you to buy it down that much. And it may not make sense, especially over, a few years, to be able to make that investment. It just depends. And lenders will offer you many different options for how much you can buy down the interest rate. And so it's just going to be a case-by-case basis. But I would just, I would have that conversation with a lender. And sometimes it also depends on how and when they lock you in. Lenders, just like us, we don't have crystal balls. And so we can't make a prediction. Like, interest rates are fluctuating as we speak. I couldn't tell you you should definitely lock in at this very minute. We don't really know that, and they don't know that either. They can guess pretty accurately though. So those, I think, are all good things to talk to lenders about when you're considering purchasing. And a lot of times, you're not going to be able to lock in your rate until you find a house and get one accepted. And so again, that could be something where you're going to have to review all of that stuff with your lender.
Yeah, definitely. I think just, the point is make sure that, these advertised rates that you see on Quicken or Lending Tree or whatever, keep in mind that's buying down the rate to a certain amount. And, if you've got a certain amount set aside for closing costs and you've got a certain amount set aside for your down payment, keep in mind that that rate might take some money to buy it down. And so it might not be worth it. Sometimes lenders will tell people that, inevitably the law of real estate is that when you buy a house, something breaks, even if it didn't come up on the inspection. It's just kind of Murphy's Law that there's always unforeseen expenses. And usually they're not major, but there's always something that gets discovered. And so it's nice to have a little bit of a buffer for repairing things that might need to get fixed, or doing, upgrades, for example. There's a variety of things that you might not want to save. Say 1 point is $4,000. That's $4,000 you might just want for an emergency fund if something does break on the house. So it's all stuff to kind of evaluate and see if it's worth it. We have a lot of great lenders that we work with. So if you ever need any recommendations for anyone, just feel free to reach out to us. We always recommend that you work with somebody local that really knows the market. And one thing to keep in mind, and I didn't know this until several years ago, interest rates are driven by area as well. So the interest rate in Oregon might be a different interest rate than Florida. And so, these national lenders that are advertising 1.99% or whatever, they're advertising a buy down, but they're also probably advertising nationally, and that's not going to be what your rate would be here. So there's a lot to keep in mind with those online lenders. That's why we recommend working with somebody local.
That's a good point. And, I think another thing to consider is you're not really going to know exactly what you're looking at payment wise until you find the house. And partially it's going to be based on those taxes too. Like, what are the taxes on the house? Because that's going to affect your payment as well. And of course, we can't predict the future. We can kind of estimate what your taxes could be. And I think most lenders estimate a little on the high side. So then when you do find that house, it's actually, the situation looks even better. But again, we don't know until you find the house. So I think, it's a great time to buy. And I totally agree, Jen, that the urgency actually kind of needs to be there because we do see that rates are starting to creep up again. And I think they'll come up slowly, but even when they do come up slowly, that could make a difference for some folks.
Yeah, it really can. 0.5 point, 5% purchasing power, 1 point is 10%. Up here, that makes a huge difference. I mean, I don't know about down there, but the difference between a $400,000 house and a $500,000 house around here is huge.
Well, and it could be the difference of, okay, well, you started off looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in your price range. And now that rates are going up and your buying power might be decreasing a little bit, maybe that means you're looking at a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath now.
Yeah, it really could affect the type of house you're buying. So I think our point is, I know there's a lot of fatigue and frustration out there with the market. And I've heard stories. I'm on a lot of Facebook groups. I heard the record-breaking one today I heard was 31 offers before they got one accepted, which is insane. And I feel so bad for those people. I'm not having that kind of numbers. I'm usually only having to write a few offers before they get accepted, but it's still heartbreaking when people lose out on houses. And I get it. It's emotional, but the overall long-term return that real estate can give you, it's worth it. It's worth it to compete in this market. It's worth it to, pay a little bit more. And one thing I think you kind of briefly touched on, but I'll recap is that, with rates the way they are, for every $5,000 you go up in sales price, that's only about $20 a month. So, $10,000, $40, $50 a month, something like that. So, when you're going, oh my gosh, am I going to have to pay $50,000 over asking? What does that really look like on a monthly basis? And if it's like, well, it's not that much money, maybe it's kind of worth it to you to pay $50,000 more for a house when you think about it in those terms of that could be $75 or $100 a month. It's not that much money. So that's the other thing about rates being really good right now and being in the threes. When rates go up to say 5%, and you're looking at what is $10,000 more, what is $20,000 more, that does have a way bigger impact on your payment. So
yeah. And what's interesting is, people are, I think, always concerned about, okay, yeah, they get their loan and everything together, they're writing these offers and say they are paying over asking price for it. But the way our appreciation is going these days, you're probably going to make up that overpayment. You're going to make that up just with appreciation in probably a few months. So depending on how much you're spending over the asking price. So, and it's in the meantime, you're still building equity that you weren't doing before, especially if you were renting before. So it's good to just start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Well, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're always here and happy to help answer anything you might want to know. Again, referrals to lenders, whatever we can help with.
And I want to give another shout out to Jess Walker-Wise with Movement Mortgage. Thank you, Jess, for the information. And we are trying to get her on the show. So one of these days we'll actually have her here live with us. So anyway, thank you all for joining us. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and at realoregonlifestyle.com. Thanks so much.
Thank you.